The Medium is a Thai-South Korean co-production found footage film. The stamp of quality.
มึงก็ลองถ่ายดูสิว่ากูคือใคร
Our second episode of Jimmer Goes to the Movies. I am your host, The Jimmer, and today we're going to be talking about a film that's on a streaming service. That film is called The Medium. However, before I go diving into my opinions of the film, I want to take a moment and talk about the found footage genre. So based on the intro that you just saw, you can probably guess I'm not a big fan. Every time I hear a film described as a found footage film, I have to pull my eyes out the back of my skull. There's just this standard now for found footage film where it seems to just include mediocre horror films. They are films that put very little effort in the production phase and then a bunch of cash into post-production. They focus so much on using jump scares and are just a quick, easy cash grab. The thing is, though, is that sometimes there's a good movie in there, in that steaming pile of garbage. So you're basically playing the lottery every time when you're watching a found footage film. Looking back at where the found footage genre started, you have films that usually people consider Cannibal Holocaust to be the first in that genre. In that film, it is actually about someone looking for and finding the footage. The whole premise of the movie is there is a documentary news crew going into the Amazon to do a story on cannibals. So the movie starts with the higher-ups at the news station sending an anthropologist into the Amazon to figure out what happened to this news crew that went missing. Turns out, surprise, they're eaten by cannibals, but the cannibals actually kept their footage. So the anthropologist befriends the local inhabitants and brings the footage back to New York. That's the first half of the movie, and the second half of the movie is watching the footage he then finds. And an interesting aspect, too, is the fact that the first half of the movie that's shot like a normal movie is shot in 35 millimeter, while the footage of the camera crew is shot in 16 millimeters. Also in the second half, we discover that the documentary news crew were actually harassing the local inhabitants. Their plan was to take the footage they got back to New York, re-edit it, and make this sensationalized news story of events and paint the Amazonian tribes as cruel, inhuman animals. So the question I have during a lot of found footage films I watch is actually answered here. That is, why are they still filming this? And Cannibal Holocaust, they continue to film because they want to capture these horrific acts of violence to appease the audience craving for that violence, even when it includes their own death. But the big found footage film that I think everybody thinks of is The Blair Witch Project, a film shot by a couple of film students who didn't have a lot of money, so they couldn't afford a bunch of fancy equipment. Their solution was, let's just have the amateur aesthetic of be a part of the actual movie. In this case, the filmmakers did not have to try and mimic low quality video because they were actually shooting with low quality video. Also, there was a big push for that film during the ad campaign, making people believe that the events in the film actually happened. So where does that lead us to today? Many found footage films now do not focus on the characters, motivations for actually filming. The camera is not operated by amateurs, but it's usually a professional cameraman. So they have this professional sheen to them, but they're supposed to be filmed by people who only know how to shoot film on their phone. Also speaking of the characters, they are never engaging in most of these films, and thus there is no human connection keeping me or really anybody invested in the story on screen. And that leads us to the movie I want to talk about today, which my only introduction to it was The Medium was a found footage film. So I was hesitant to watch it at first. That's all I knew about it. I was expecting it to just walk away disinterested, but I actually walked away enjoying the movie. It does have its flaws, mainly in the final act. It kind of stumbles. But the basic premise of the movie is there's a documentary crew that interviews a whole bunch of local shamans, and they end up picking one to focus on. So they decide to follow Nim and learn about her life story. However, something starts to happen in her family life. Her niece Mink starts to act strange. And the family believes that this is a sign that the goddess their family worshipped is going to transfer Nim's shaman responsibilities to the niece. But they soon start to figure out that this might be something a little bit more evil. The first thing that the movie does correct that other found footage films fail at is establishing why the characters are filming. So in this case, it's actually similar to Cannibal Holocaust. The characters are filming because they're a documentary crew. And at first, the movie follows Nim's life as a shaman, and you think it's going to be about her, but as they start to intervene and meet her family, they start to realize that there's something else going on that they want to focus on, particularly with the niece Mink. So now the plot changes from focusing on Nim to Mink and her family life, introducing this huge, large cast of characters, which is where this film also succeeds, where other found footage films fail. Anybody can relate to having family trauma and the hardships that go with it, and thus become invested in Nim's struggles to help her niece. Unfortunately for Mink's family, her situation continues to grow more dire as the movie goes along. At first, the movie frames it as Mink just going through a possible rebellious phase in her life, but soon it becomes clear that it's not that simple. The film actually continues to throw curveballs throughout the plot, and just when you think you have the whole mystery figured out, it takes another turn. As I mentioned before, however, the film is not perfect. The biggest fault in the movie is the ending. A lot of what I dislike about the found footage films show up here. Started to question more about why the filmmakers are in the situation. Why are they even still shooting? It was a real bummer because the rest of the movie was really well done. So while I certainly enjoyed the first and second act of this movie a lot, the movie did not fully stick its landing. But I would still recommend the movie. So the question is, where can you watch this movie? And that segues into our sponsor for this episode, Shudder. Shudder is a premium streaming service with the best selection of horror, thriller, and supernatural movies, and series uncut and commercial free, from Hollywood favorites and cult classics to original series and critically acclaimed new films you won't find anywhere else. So check out films including Mandy, One Cut of the Dead, and of course this week's movie, The Medium. So go to shudder.com and you can get a 7-day free trial today. And with that, we conclude our second episode. Next time we meet will actually be Tuesday instead of a Thursday, November 23rd. See you next time.
My name is Brody Liberty, and I'm coming at you live from the White Void in the basement of NWTC for console chatting. We will talk about my favorite console today, the Nintendo GameCube. Last week we talked about my childhood console, the PlayStation 2, and while that console has my heart, the GameCube is where I learned and gained my love of old video games and consoles. Now, before we get there in more detail, let's talk about the console's history. Released on November 18th, 2001, in North America anyways, the GameCube, or Dolphin as it was known in development, was Nintendo's first disc-based console, with their last console being the cartridge-based N64. The GameCube was succeeded by the Wii, and it was discontinued in February 2007, giving it a lifespan of 6 years. In that time, the console sold 21.75 million units worldwide, and according to Wikipedia, has 653 games. Though I am sure there are many more non-registered games on the GameCube, since the GameCube games are able to be played on the Wii, giving the games a longer lifespan than the console itself. Now, something I didn't do with the PlayStation 2 that I will do today is talk about the weird add-ons the GameCube has. For one, it has LAN capabilities, however you want to say it. You need an add-on for it, but some games were built with servers for people to play online, mostly with some RPGs, but there was some racing games that you could play online. Now, the official servers have shut down years ago, but there are still private servers, so if you still own these games, you could still play them. So, yeah, and these games also had a special controller, most of the RPG ones, that's just a GameCube controller with just a keyboard in the middle. Like, look at that thing, that is chunky. It's like, ugh. And then there was also a disc one, built-in disc reader so that you could watch movies. And finally, my favorite add-on is the Game Boy player, which I own. It as you can tell by the name, it allows you to play Game Boy games in the GameCube. So Color, Advanced, or just the base Game Boy games. So yeah, but yeah, as you'll see as a theme moving forward, it is not a pretty penny, or it is a pretty penny. How do you say it? It's expensive. It is very expensive. This disc, $80. Just the disc. But it works perfectly. It works fantastically. Oh no, what have I done? Uh-oh, I did a thing. Don't worry, it's fine. I screwed that up. Shoot. Hang on. One moment. No, don't do that. Yes. Hang on. Sorry. Hang on. Holding? Are you holding? I'm holding. Stalling? No, it's I messed up the prompter. I hit the wrong button. Okay. Okay, fixed it. Sorry, I touched a button I wasn't supposed to. I should look at this. I wasn't looking at it. So before we get more into detail about what I own, we should talk about how I came to love the GameCube. So I don't actually know where I first came upon it, but I do remember my father playing it. He played Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and I don't know, that just kind of stuck with me. And eventually, when I was able to get my hands on it, I played the games we had of Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door, Mario Sunshine, and Donkey Konga. I was terrible at all of them, but Donkey Konga more so, and I'm still terrible at it. I don't know. Rhythm games are just difficult. So the Cube showed me the world of old games, and well, 2000 early 2000s, so old by the time I got to them, but it showed me graphics are nothing compared to a good game, and the Cube is loaded with good games. I mean, it has both Sunshine and Sonic Adventure 2. Two games where the main character is arrested. Like, what? What was with the early 2000s and classic characters just being arrested? like once, okay, sure, but twice? Yeah, the console made me fall in love with collecting. And, it's just, like, it fostered my love of old games and stuff. So I started to go and search out cool game stores to try and like find more stuff, since like GameStop doesn't have it, but I was able to find some. And speaking of which, let's have a quick word from our not official sponsor. Are you looking for old video games or new video games, consoles, controllers, heck, repair? They even have Nintendo Powers you can browse. Coming down to 400 Reed Street, De Pere, Wisconsin. Open 10 to 8. Used old games. Game Trade is the place to buy and sell. Or trade, The people there at the store are amazing. If you're ever looking for a specific game that they don't have in stock currently, you can ask them, and they'll put you on a list so that when they do get their hands on it, they can call you right away and give you dibs before placing it on the shelf. Seriously, if you enjoy video games and you live in the area, you have to come on down to Game Trade and at least look around. I'm sure at least one thing will catch your eye. There we go. Now, back to the show. As I started to actually gain an income and like work and stuff, my collection grew every paycheck. Each time I got paid, I would head over to Game Trade and scout it out, and then return the same day with money, determined to leave with at least one game. And I would always check the GameCube games first. While my collection is not big by any stretch of the imagination, I find it to be strong. I've gotten my hands on Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Kirby Air Ride, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Mario Kart Double Dash, Pikmin, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and my most recent and expensive edition, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, which, if you know anything about, is an exceedingly rare find. Yeah, these games are some of my most prized in my collection. I do have other games than just GameCube games in my collection, but whatever I'm like, what should I play? I always kind of check the GameCube games ones first. A little bit to brag to myself. But yeah, there is one more game in my collection that I do prize out of my GameCube games. It carries a warning for any aspiring GameCube collectors or GameCube game collectors. The first game on the GameCube, Luigi's Mansion. It's the reason why it carries a warning is GameCube games are fickle, in that the early ones are prone to breaking, and not in like a noticeable way, not like a crack, not like a splinter or anything, or it's not even a way that can really be fixed. Luigi's Mansion is one of these fickle GameCube games. In the past, I've had it stop working. It just refuses to even load. And I did manage to get it fixed, thanks to some wonderful people in town. It was another store. It wasn't Game Trade. They do have cleaners, but theirs are not built for GameCube games. But this other store does have one that called Mojo's in the mall. They did have one that they were able to get it to work, but they gave me a warning while they were trying to repair it because it didn't seem like it was going to repair it at first. It's not a perfect thing. These discs were not really built with kind of longevity in mind early on. I guess it's something with their production. It's just a tiny little disc, but they slowly just degrade over time. So I'm giving you guys all the same warning that those guys in the store gave me then. It's, if you have GameCube games, I'm not saying like hide them away or like try and put them in a sealed bag because it doesn't really help. Just take them out, play them, enjoy them, love them. Because one day they might just be a cool thing on your shelf that doesn't work anymore. I'm still hoping I can get this fixed. I'm going to take it to those guys again because I only just recently found out that it no longer wishes to work. But I don't know, because after the last time I thought it would be fine, but then again it did this again. So, but yeah, to not end on a sour note, I will once again state that this is my favorite console. It has given me my love of collecting and showed me how great old video games can be, and I'm glad to have grown up with it. And I'm truly proud of what I've collected for it. That's all for today. Till next time, this is Brody Liberty of Chatting Consoles signing off.